Welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samuel. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. And you know what time it is? It is now 10 a.m. on the East Coast of the United States, Monday morning. And that means it is now time for our weekly joint live stream, which means everybody put down whatever you're doing, turn off the telly, stop ironing, stop, doing the dishes, everything. Just
Get off Twitter.
exactly, get off Twitter, whatever. Just, stop watching CNN, just focus. So there's been a kind of an eventful last few hours, Peter. So as it always is with President Trump, because if you recall, yesterday we did a quite a lengthy podcast on Trump's most recent threats against Iran. He had issued a 48-hour ultimatum to Iran. Let's just take a look at what he actually said. Just as a refresher. And here was what he said. If Iran doesn't fully open without threat the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. And then, of course, thank you for your attention to this matter. And then we discussed Iran's response. This is from the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, who said, immediately after the power plants and infrastructure in our country are targeted, the critical infrastructure, energy infrastructure, and oil facilities throughout the region will be considered legitimate targets and will be destroyed in an irreversible manner. And the price of oil will remain high for a long time. And throw down what is in your right hand, it will swallow up what they have made. So that's how things stood. And so we were basically looking at the clock and waiting for that 48-hour deadline to elapse. And then we were going to see what exactly is Trump going to do. But as per usual, he kind of reversed himself and sent out a quite stunning truth today. So let's just examine carefully what he sent out today, and before we discuss it. So here's this. So, and in all caps, all caps. I am pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had, over the last 2 days, very good and productive conversations regarding.
I'm detecting lies. Keep going.
All right. Very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East, based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed, and constructive conversations, which will continue throughout the week.
I thought they were scumbags or something like that.
They were deranged. They were deranged
There we
scumbags.
go.
Not just scumbags, but deranged
They-
scumbags. Detailed and constructive conversations, which will continue throughout the week. I have instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against the Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period. So that sees us through till Friday evening. Subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So again, if we go through that, over the last 2 days, we have had very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East.
Also, we're supposed to believe that over the how many days? Few days?
This is 2 days.
Okay. Well, 2 days ago, the ultimatum was made. So you're involved in discussions and you send out a ultimatum. Okay. All right. That doesn't seem right. Doesn't seem logical to me.
It's also a little peculiar because he says we're having these conversations. Only the other day, and we discussed this yesterday, he was saying, well, we really don't know who's in charge because we have one leader and then we kill him, and then he's replaced by another set of leaders and we kill them, and then another set of leaders and we kill them. So we don't know who we're dealing with, and that's just the way we like it. He
But
said,
you are dealing with someone.
you're dealing with someone. So whom is he dealing with? Now, it's the tone of this, a complete and total resolution of our differences.
Oh, what happened to unconditional surrender?
Yes, exactly. Based on the tenor and tone of these details, throughout the week, I have instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to the success of the ongoing meeting and discussions. All right. So, I mean, let's just sort of take it, and discuss it from the various ways of looking at it. And we could say, okay, no, there are no. That's one possibility. There are no negotiations taking place, and Trump has just simply come up with this story to cover the fact that he's not going to undertake what would be absolutely devastating attacks on these power plants, and then that would in turn be responded by Iran, and then all hell would break loose in the Middle East and the whole world economy. So that's one possibility. Trump just simply made this up to get himself off the hook. Um, that now it is also possible. There's another possibility that he is that this is genuine. He's trying to get himself out of this the jam
Well,
that
I think we
he's
can
in.
all agree on that one. Okay.
Right. So he unlike Israel, I think he's realized that this is a very serious crisis that he has led the country into, and so he's trying to find a way out. The problem for him is, of course, that it's hard to come up with some complete and total resolution of our hostilities that would in any way be a complete and total resolution of the hostilities.
Yes, but for the Iranian side, it's only through hostilities to get a resolution.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's really the problem. Now, if there are genuine negotiations, then it would be what would that entail? I mean, they could go back to the same deal that was being discussed in Geneva and before that in
Oh.
Moscow. But then the United States would have to make serious concessions. I mean, if in other words, not just well, we won't bomb you, but you're going to have to come up with some some incentives for Iran, such as unfreezing of assets, such as the lifting of sanctions. Um, at least the United States would have to offer something. If you say complete and
Well,
total
no, no, no.
resolution of hostilities, that's the only thing that could
No,
work
no,
here.
no. We're way past that point. Now, this is the way it's going to work. If the United States wants to end this conflict, it's going to have to deal with Iran's demands. So Iran is going to be driving this. We know what the Iranians want. We've gone through this list over and over again. Obviously, the removal of American bases in the region, the end of sanctions, some kind of security guarantee. George and I talked about that
Right.
yesterday.
Mm.
It's not what Donald Trump wants. He's going to have to start listening, and he's going to have to react to the demands made by Iran. The script is flipped
Right. Exactly.
because because everything that we talked about last June and then right up to this conflict here, that's gone. You can't you can't step in the same river twice. It's over. Okay.
Well, I think that's right, but I think one also has to be realistic. I mean, in terms of the demands that Iran would make, I think demanding that the United States closes its bases, I think that's a non-starter. That's not going to
No,
happen.
George, you're misunderstanding me. Okay,
No,
obviously,
I agree with you that they would
what I'm
Iran
saying,
would
there's
have
going
to
to
they would
be.
have to make concessions to Iran, but I think what kind of concessions is it conceivable
Yes,
that
but
the
that's
United
the
States would?
starting point.
Right,
That's the
right. No,
starting
no,
point.
that's
Okay,
fine.
but my point is, it's not the Iranians have to react to what demands the Americans and the Israelis have. Now it's the Americans and the Israelis are going to have to grapple with the demands Iran is
Right. No,
making.
okay.
And and you start out with a maximalist approach. Okay, you don't incremental it. Okay,
okay,
so
right. But if we are thinking about the end of this war, then what would that ending look like? And that's why I think that's why it's okay. I mean, let's take it again. That's fine. Yes, they're going to have to deal with Iran's demands, but what would that end look like? And so I think that what's realistic, what is achievable for Iran. I think lifting of sanctions would have to be on the agenda, and I think there would have to be the unfreezing of assets. I think, and I think, as we discussed, the non-aggression agreement. In other words, some kind of a pledge that there'll be no more of these attacks.
and
And
that would, and as we said yesterday, that would have to, in my opinion, would have to entail the guarantors of such an agreement would be Russia and China, at the very least. At the very least. Okay. All right. We might be getting ahead of ourselves here. Number one, I don't think that this is true. I don't think there are any negotiations. I think Donald Trump is simply lying. Okay. The Iranians have made it very clear over and over again they're not in negotiations and they're not interested in negotiations. Another issue is this Trump doing market manipulation right now? Did he tell his buddies, I'm going to give a 5-day extension, and and then if you put a put on a stock, oh yeah, well, okay, great, the markets recover. It's very cynical. I think it's probably true. That's the kind of people that surround him. And most importantly, everyone, this is the tag team. Here we go, the tag team. The Americans make a position, and then what are the Israelis going to do? They're going to crush any possibility of any negotiations. Okay, so here we go. Here we go
right,
around
but
and
okay,
around again,
but yes,
because
okay,
I
but
see no
yeah,
reason why
all right,
Israel
but
should
yes,
do
but
that.
all right, we've been here before, and the fact is that Israel ultimately, if the United States says we want out, then it comes to an end because Israel cannot take on Iran by itself. It doesn't really matter what Israel does if the United States is determined to bring it to an end.
Well, there's the key worm. Are they determined enough?
Well,
We don't.
I would think, given the condition of the perilous nature of the world economy, which is something that Trump does pay attention to. I think the perilous situation he might be in domestically, I think he has every incentive to want to bring it to an end.
Well,
Now,
can he get out? See, that's
well,
the big question.
he always can if he makes clear to Israel that this is it. He did it on Gaza. He did bring it to an end on Gaza. There was a moment when he said, I have had enough. And that came to an end. So he can always do it. I'm not saying that this truth that he sent out is indeed true, because we simply don't know. But I do think that um, if there are some negotiations, and I do think Iran wants to bring it to an end, but obviously wants to bring it to an end on favorable conditions. I mean, it would be foolish for them to overplay their hand and start making lots and lots of demands that there's no possibility of realization. But some demands, I think, are achievable, and I think something like sanctions relief, unfreezing of frozen assets, and a non-aggression agreement with the United States, not with Israel. Israel is not going to sign that, but Israel can't do anything without the United States. So that may not be that big a deal if Israel refuses to sign a non-aggression agreement, which I think it will. Everything will depend upon the United States. So something like that could be doable. Something could be achievable. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but an agreement along those lines could happen.
Yeah, I'm very very skeptical. Okay, we, Essentially, what Trump is looking for is it's an off-ramp call to ceasefire. He wants at least hostilities to
Right,
stop.
right. But
Well,
that isn't going to
look,
happen.
look, this
Ceasefire. Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
we've been here before. Again, Trump wants a deal.
But
What
that's not what the truth.
and let me finish. It looks like, in my opinion, it looks like he's looking for a deal. What Iran is looking for is a strategic solution. In this case, they're not overlapping, George.
Well, we don't know what's on offer. I mean, look at the
If
wording.
anything's on offer,
We don't know what's on offer. I mean, yeah, we don't know if any. You're right. We don't know if that. But if you look at the wording of that truth, he's not saying a ceasefire. He says a complete and total resolution of our hostilities. So it seems like he's talking about a serious, some serious, final settlement. May not be true,
yeah,
but you can't play this game over and over again. I mean, if this
yeah,
is
but
just,
we are,
well,
but we are.
I don't know because let's say he's doing this in order to for a market recovery. Okay, so the market did recover. Oil prices fell after this message. However, eh, all right, you've done it once. You can't do it. You can't do the same thing. I mean, now he's got himself off the hook. But okay, you can't keep pulling that stunt again. In a few days' time, you've now got everybody very interested. What who's negotiating? What are you talking about? What kind of a final outcome are we talking about?
Yeah, well, there's so many problems with this here. Um, Trump makes this pronouncement. Okay, I'm sorry, we've been here so many times. I just don't have. I really don't have the energy to put much time into it because we've seen this kind of machinations when it comes to negotiations. Number two, is Israel going to stop its attack on Iran during
No,
all
no, no. I think
this 5 year this 5 a day hiatus? No,
no,
is Iran
no, and I think
going to
that's
stop?
already,
No,
and I
not
think
going to
no, no.
stop.
I think, and
So
that's,
materially,
but that's
nothing is really.
that's a separate issue. I think that is a
No, no,
separate
no. What I'm
issue.
just saying is that the threat of going up the escalation ladder has been put on hold, but the step below that is continue. So the hostilities, the kinetic action is going to continue unabated.
That I look, I don't think Israel's going to stop. I think, but the that's not really the issue here. The issue is here is whether the United States under Trump is willing to cut bait and bring this thing with Israel to an end, because Israel cannot take on Iran by itself. It's clear that
Sure, sure.
that kind of, so everything depends on, as long as Israel has the United States in its corner. So it's quite possible that Israel will continue. In fact, we know Israel has. I mean, here the very next story.
Well, George. Okay, Trump made the threat of annihilating, obliterating his favorite words or whatever, the energy infrastructure of Iran. Well, what if Israel starts doing that? It's not. It's the United States is not doing it. What if the Israelis
Well,
start doing
I
it?
think that's quite possible. Israel will
Yeah.
do that, but and Iran will then retaliate against Israel. However, Trump does not necessarily have to go down that path. All Trump has to do is to say, well, I, as the president of the United States, am bringing this to an end. I'm offering this to Iran, and I don't care what Israel says. I mean, he can do that.
Uh,
He did that with Gaza. I mean, remember, he did bring that to an end in Gaza. Um,
well, it's not
not
over.
in any way. Well, it's not in any way that Israel is satisfied. Hamas is still there. Israel has not eliminated Hamas, so he did bring it to an end in a way that was not satisfactory to Israel. So, in theory, I mean, that's a different issue of whether he will do this, but in theory, it can be done because Iran can take on Israel. Iran and Israel, they're kind of evenly matched. Iran versus Israel and the United States, that's a different issue, and that's why um, if Trump were then to make an offer, we'll talk about the things we talked about in Geneva, but here are the things that I'm offering you. That could be a way out. Doesn't matter what Israel does. United States, is going to
I'm
step.
sorry, that's where we disagree. It does matter what Israel does because it's because of Israel. Trump is in this war. Okay,
Yes.
I cannot see him cutting that knot at this point in time. I think he's grappling. I think he's trying to figure out a way out. Okay, and there's one thing I think that we should be we can all agree on. Israel's not going to let Trump go now. Oh no, because this is an existential threat to Israel
Well,
as
it is
well.
very
That's
much
very real.
yes, it is a very much an existential threat to Israel, but ultimately it's the United States that calls the shots. And as we discussed yesterday, he's not that interested in Israel. I mean, he never has been. He's never been any interested in any Jewish things. He's just not never. This has not been a big thing for him in all the years that he's been in public life. It was 50 years. Israel has never been a big thing for him. So he could, he could basically, I mean, when we were talking about yesterday, what is Trump's game? We know what Israel's game, so that's not a mystery there. But what is Trump's game? He was thinking in terms of some final solution, getting all the problems of the world wrapped up during his second term in office. Cuba, Venezuela, here, and then he's going to wrap up the Iranian problem. Well, now he's seen this Iranian problem is not going to be wrapped up. So he has every incentive, really, just to say, look, hey, I'm going to work something out, and then I'm going to, say, oh, some great achievement. Israel is going to attack him. The Israel lobby will come after him like it was savagery. However, he can't ignore it. He is the president of the United States, after
I
all.
don't. I don't know,
They
George.
are just Israel lobbyists.
It all remains to be seen at this
Of
point
course,
here.
yes, yeah.
And if past is prelude, then Trump will cave again. I mean, he's going to taco, and he doesn't know which way to go. Are those? George and I are not military men, so forgive my clumsiness in language. But are the expeditionary force still on its way to the Persian Gulf? Is the 82nd Airborne, firing itself up? I mean, that's why, when these truths come out, we all are very, very skeptical. I'm more interested in what's really happening on the ground, okay, as much as we can know. So the kinetic action is continuing, and I just feel it in my bones. The United States, through this proclamation by Trump, a 5-minute, 5-day hiatus. That's the cue for the Israelis to say, well, we'll take out Tehran's electrical grid. Okay. So what's the difference? I don't think the Iranians make a real big difference if it's an American bomb.
No,
Well,
well,
actually, they're all American
right, but
bombs.
that's still not. That's a separate issue. That's a separate
I don't think
issue.
so.
No, it is. It's a separate issue. The issue here is, what is Trump's plan? Does Trump have an exit plan?
Does he have a
Is this
plan, or is
is
he
this
looking for
is
one?
this truth the prelude to a Trump exit plan, which I think is a separate issue from what Israel is going to do? I have no doubts Israel will attack Iran's infrastructure, and Iran will retaliate. The question then is still, well, is Trump, however, now thinking in terms of getting out of this? I mean, he obviously was last week. I mean, last week when he sent out that other truth that we discussed the other day, when he said, "Yeah, I'm thinking of winding things down." Then, of course, he reversed himself. But now this one goes much further than winding things down. He's just simply saying we're negotiating a complete and total
Well,
resolution, which is
there's
far
no.
far beyond anything that he said before.
The problem is there's no indication there are negotiations going on. And number two, why would Iran be interested in it at this
Well,
stage?
it
And
depends on what's on offer. I mean, if all that's being discussed is, well, you will do this, and this, and then we're not going to shoot at you anymore. Well, that obviously that's not a deal.
but Israel might keep shooting at you.
Yeah, but okay, but that's a separate issue. America can still cut itself off from Israel. I didn't.
Oh,
No,
George,
no, no.
listen to
That's a
listen
separate
to
issue. These
yourself.
are two separate issues.
Listen to yourself.
America, no,
America's
no,
going to cut
America.
itself
Let
off
me
from
finish.
Israel.
Come on,
Really?
let me finish.
Okay.
America is together with Israel on this now, but America can always cut itself off from Israel should it realize that this is an absolute disaster, particularly world economy. Israel doesn't care about the world economy. The United States does. That's a big deal. So you have to think in terms of, if Israel, yeah, Israel is the Samson option. We're ready to bring the whole world down for our survival. That's not how Washington thinks. Trump pays attention to the stock exchange. He pays attention to the bond market. He knows that hey, we could have a real serious global recession on our hands. So he has every incentive to bring it to an end. So therefore, he could well be going to Iran saying, "Hey, let's just bring this thing to an end. I will make these offers," and I think Iran, if you could give them a financial incentive, sanctions lifting, unfreezing of assets, and some kind of a non-aggression agreement, I think Iran would take it. Now, Israel, that's a different issue. Israel, then Israel will have to deal with it by itself, and I think Israel will have then the Israel will then think, if we don't have the United States in our corner, we need to wrap it up, because everything Israel can only survive as long as the United States is in there batting on its behalf.
Yeah, I mean, this goes into the realm of something that you and I have talked about since the very beginning of this conflict, and actually, the one of the origin stories of this entire podcast is that we try to apply common sense. And so, George, you're doing that. You're really doing a good job at it too. But I just don't think it applies anymore. He was somehow, through some means, he was convinced to start this truly absurd, disastrous policy. I just don't know if he has the means to get out of it right now. Look, all of is a question. This is an open question to everyone here. So, what intelligence is Trump getting? Is he getting it from the Mossad? Is he getting it from all the Israeli Israel firsters around him? I mean, how does Trump? He needs to get rid of all of these people as an act of good faith. I mean, just like get rid of Kushner, get rid of Steve
Right?
Witkoff. I'm
No,
serious. I'm a serious guy now. For the first time in my whole life, I'm serious. Okay. I mean, there's such a credibility problem right now, and again, you're right. Maybe Trump does, in his mind, want this kind of total solution. So does Iran. Iran wants a
yeah,
total solution to this
yeah.
here. Okay. Now it's really incumbent upon it's not the two different directions, the Israelis and the Americans. They're one and the same for Iran. One in the same. And
I no, well,
let me finish and I'll let you go. The Iranians, if in this magical conversation that's going on here, you're going to have to cut your junior partner down to size, and we mean seriously cut down to size. Like get out of Lebanon. All right, number one, get out of Lebanon. It's going to be a global deal. These things are so intertwined right now. It's hard to separate them, and I think the Iranians, rightfully, rationally, are saying, you guys are one big blob, and we're going to deal with you equally the same. We're not going to differentiate.
I don't think that's the case. I think Iran
Okay.
will see the United States as the adversary that it cannot defeat. But it sees Israel as something that it can take. Iran and Israel are fairly evenly matched, and Iran knows that if United States cuts Israel off and says, "Okay, that's it, this is over," then the war will come to an end. Israel is not going to fight Iran by itself. Israel has only ever done this, only ever attacked Iran when it knew that the United States was right behind it and would join in this attack. So if Trump were now to negotiate seriously with Iran and do all the things that we discussed, I don't think Iran is necessarily going to be worrying about Israel, because they know Netanyahu is just going to bring it to an end. Netanyahu is going to bring it to an end if Trump is going to bring it to an end.
George, this is not a rhetorical question. When has Trump negotiated in good faith?
Well, I think on Gaza, I think he did negotiate. I mean, they did come to an agreement. I mean, there is, I mean, whatever else you can say is a quote ceasefire unquote, but it's still better than what there was before. I mean, obviously, it's not a, I mean, obviously, it isn't a ceasefire, but it's infinitely better than it was before. I mean, the scale
Yeah,
of
but
killing has
Iran,
drastically.
the Palestinians in Gaza are not the Iranians in Iran. Okay, I think they're very different things.
No,
Okay.
I agree, but you asked me when, and I think but I think it was
Well,
also.
if that's your best
Well, no,
case of
I
good
know, but I
faith,
think what he did in Gaza was precisely what I was suggesting that he might do. I'm not saying he will. He might do here, which is to say, "I'm out of here," and then Israel is on its own. And if once Israel feels that it's on its own, then it comes to an end. It always only
all
comes
right.
once Israel is on its own.
Okay, there's so many unknowns here. I don't know how much further how much progress we can make, and that's not the lack of your interest and ability, and that applies to myself as well, I would say. But let me ask a different question: does Trump have the skill to do this, George?
Well, I don't know if he has the skill, but he does. He is a businessman, and there are certain things he pays attention to, and he does pay attention to stock markets. He does pay attention to oil prices. He does pay attention to bond markets. And if he gets people like Scott Besson coming into his office and saying, "Hey, we're going to have a real problem on our hands, in the bond market," and stocks are going to be collapsing, and the dollar is going to be collapsing. I mean, the dollar is already very weak. I think he's going to pay attention to that. He's going to say this isn't really worth doing. And, particularly as I'm heading into elections in a few months' time. So he has an incentive to wrap things up. I mean, things didn't work out, but that's again, he is pragmatic. The Israelis are not, but he is pragmatic. Hey, we didn't get what we wanted, but then just wrap it up, get the best deal we can, and then move on to something else. I mean, I think that is a way that he thinks. He's not an ideological person. He really doesn't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
ideology.
I think he would have to marshal his the best skill set he can, because I'm pretty sure the two other parties, Israel and Iran, will not make it easy for him at
No,
all.
no,
Right?
no, no.
And that's the problem. See, this is why this is such a blunder, because the United States is not really in the driver's seat. Okay, I mean, as far as you know, intelligence, missiles, bombs, and planes. Yeah, it's got a lot, but he's deployed them very poorly. You marshal those kinds of military assets as a deterrent. You don't want to actually have to use them, but he
No,
did. Okay,
no. I
and
I think so.
it's
I
supposed
mean,
to that's supposed to be the great deterrence. And Steve Witkoff gave us an insight into Trump's thinking before the kinetic action started. He said the president, I'm paraphrasing, of course, is bewildered why the Iranians don't surrender.
right.
Okay,
No,
because
yeah.
so I would think he
So
would
I mean,
need to be.
yeah, I don't doubt. I don't doubt that going into this into the start of this war, he was obviously persuaded by what Netanyahu told him. Hey, Iran is just a house of cards; it's ready to collapse. He was probably persuaded by the fact that hey, we hit them last June, and we came out. At least we Americans came out pretty much unscathed. We killed Soleimani. I killed Soleimani. The Middle East didn't explode. So if you're Trump, you're thinking, look, these Iranians, they're just basically paper tigers. 47 years we've been worried about them. We don't have anything to worry about. We just slap them around. These are people we just slap around. Smack, and everybody else has been afraid to do it, but I've been doing it. Now he's realized, well, maybe we can't slap them around. I mean, people get fed up after a while of being slapped around, and now once he's realized that, he's like, okay, well, there's no point in continuing with this because this is just going to be an absolute horrific global catastrophe, and he sees this, and so he has every incentive just finish this off.
Yeah,
Um,
I have to wonder, to be honest, and I'm just thinking out loud right now, because I always find our conversations very stimulating. I just wonder during the next 5 days that the Houthis arrive on the
but
scene,
yeah, all
and,
of that
and
stuff.
they start working the Red Sea, and so the cost of negotiations went up just
Yeah,
that much higher. Okay, so I mean, there's no reason in the world that obviously, no country wants to be in a forever war, particularly if you're fighting the United States. But we're going to make it a little bit more expensive for you right now. Okay, so go up, because we, in our last podcast over the last few weeks, we've always been going back to the issue of escalation dominance, and pulling out the Houthis. There we go. Who's the dominant player when it comes to escalation? And I think that's going to be put on display. I mean, if I were in the game, that's exactly what I would do. Is say, "That's your cue. Come on
Yeah,
out." Okay.
right. No,
Trump says he wants to make a deal, so let's make it dear, a very dear deal.
yeah, no, I think that all of that is, I would assume, is playing a role in Trump's calculations. Because if the Houthis do, then essentially, block another international choke point, this is really going to, mess up global markets. The fact that the global markets responded in the way that they did this morning to that truth just shows how perilous the situation is, just how anxious everybody is. And so,
Yeah,
wow, just the oil price just, shot down, within minutes of that truth. So everyone is very nervous. So he sees this problem. And if the Houthis do get involved, then everything gets even worse. That's why I just think that his pragmatism, his essential pragmatism, will take over, given that he doesn't have any of the ideology of all of those, all the Mark Levins and everyone. So I think he really did believe that he joined
yeah,
forces with them because I'm going to get an easy win.
yeah.
I'm going to pull this off. I'm going to bring this regime to an end, and I'm going to be, the man who did it. This is the Ayatollahs. They defeated Jimmy Carter. Reagan didn't get anywhere with them. Bush, Clinton, everybody else. I did it. And once he realized that he's not going to be able to do it, then he's just, well, then there's no point in doing it. Now, I don't doubt that Levin and Netanyahu and others will want to keep him in there, but they have a different agenda. And
Yeah, well, I mean,
realize
but
that
see,
Israel has a very different agenda from that of the United
well, there
States.
you go. That's exactly where I wanted to go. Is we're talking about geopolitical change that is hard to comprehend over such a short amount of time. The duration of this conflict. But George, what happens to the lobby in the United States? I mean, you know, it's it's no secret anymore about the influence that the lobby has over politicians
Right.
and and media and all of that. That's all out in the open. People are talking
Yeah.
about it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness. I mean, I don't know if you saw the interview that Tucker had with that clownish Economist editor. I mean, I was
Oh, right.
astounded.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, that was just clown show stuff. Okay, and I want to repeat something I said a week ago. Tucker's not an expert on this. He's informed.
Right. Right. Right.
His opinions are well informed and
Yeah.
well grounded. But
Right.
he's not an
No.
expert.
No. No.
He's a quick study too.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
but he's not an expert. And so you have someone that has a very structured world view. There are a lot of things Tucker says that I think, well, that Tucker, you need a little, you do need to do a little bit more reading. Okay, but the thrust of what he had to say in that interview and with Huckabee here, that's part of common
Right.
discourse right now. It's not like 4 years ago where
Right.
you don't say anything. Okay,
Right.
and so I mean the correlation of forces, as it were, going into the midterms is going to be not how much money you get from APAC, but I don't take any money from
Right.
APAC. I mean, we see a shift here going on that is really dramatic. And it's only going to get worse because you have the Ellisons controlling almost all media in the United States.
Right. All of that is going to be a problem. However, that doesn't that doesn't help Trump's particular problem. You can have all the Ellisons and everything controlling the media, but if you have a global recession on your hands, if you have a worse, I mean, all the news, all the media headlines, this is a worse energy crisis than that in
Since
1973.
1973.
This is he's reading this. This is worse since 1973. He's reading this, and we can have a global recession that you have brought on by this unnecessary war. So here he went in. under the delusion that this is all going to be a piece of cake. He's going to be the hero of the hour, and now even he's going to have he's going to go down in history. It says as worse than Jimmy Carter.
Worse than Jimmy Carter.
Exactly. Jimmy Carter. Kind of, and which he himself had always made fun of Jimmy Carter. He's going to say, "Yeah, I'm going to have a worse reputation than Jimmy Carter." So that's why I think he has an every incentive to ignore, suddenly to say, "I'm not going to listen to Hannity and Levin and everyone else anymore. I'm going to see what deal I can get." Now, I do agree. Whatever, if there is going to be a deal, it's going to be a much better deal for Iran than the one they were ready to sign before the bombing. I mean, the one that they were ready to sign in Geneva would be was a much worse deal than the one that Iran would now have, precisely because Iran has withstood what the United States throw at it. So you're in a sense, Iran is the victor. That's all. Iran wins by surviving. America threw everything you had at it, and it survived. Iran therefore wins. So I think that Trump would have to then accept, hey, you've accomplished very little, but he might think that that's at least a temporary humiliation. He's going to be, everyone's going to deride him, but then we're going to be moving on to other things. And
yeah,
Cuba,
and
exactly, get
Greenland.
a win in Cuba, and then suddenly everyone's talking about, oh, we've got it. We finally removed the communists from Cuba, and they're obviously negotiating. There's a lot of very active negotiations taking place in Cuba, and which he will, without question, then tout as a great accomplishment. He will arrive in Havana with Marco Rubio in tow, as well, this is it. We've got it. We've got Cuba back. So that'll, I think,
Trump
take
isn't.
away the taste of this.
Trump is not going to get out of this war easily. No way. Okay? I mean, and also, I mean, if you're on the Iranian side, and let's have no doubt, everyone, Iran has been trashed, okay? Big time, okay? And the cost of rebuilding a country that has been under sanction for so long. I mean, there's no rosy path ahead, okay? And I'm so against this war. I want it to end. I want it to end now. I want it to end now. But it's only gonna end on terms that where Tehran will agree, and it will have to be a grand strategy
Right,
solution.
right,
And
right.
and it's incumbent upon Donald Trump now. All right, maybe you just have this tiny sliver of confidence that people have in you, because I lost it. Okay,
Right,
but
right,
let's just say you want to dig yourself out of this hole that you dug for yourself. You better start making good on it, and making good on it now.
Yeah, I think,
Okay,
I
and,
think so.
and get rid of this Witkoff Kushner duo,
Right,
which
right.
this
No,
is
hold on.
poison. Okay, these are poisonous people.
Right.
Okay, they are Israel firsters.
Yeah.
Okay, and you said something, George, watching the markets. Well, I get little confidence from Donald Trump. He says, "Oh, good, high oil prices is good for us." Yeah, your class of friends. Okay,
But
you can't say he's sophisticated and then he openly shows his greed of the class of people that he hobnobs with. Okay, like high
I
oil prices is bad for poor people. Full
right.
stop.
That's what I question. It's sort of sophisticated in the sense that he is someone when you give him bad news, and he's immediately going to try and interpret it as really good news. I mean, that's his mentality. It's like he's done this all his life. So people tell him, hey, look at oil prices. So he tries to, hey, how can I spin it? How can I, get myself out of this? Because it's not in his nature to say, yeah, I feel really terrible for ordinary people. He's always going to say, no, it's actually really good news, because it means, all these rich oil industrialists are going to be doing well. I mean, that's his instinct. He is someone who I think all his life has been involved in business, and that is a language that he has understood. And we've seen it in all of the talks about tariffs, where he's backed down very quickly. I mean, that was a remarkable thing, and I was surprised that when he made the big announcement about tariffs, Liberation Day, and there was obviously a negative response in the markets, as might have been expected. I thought, okay, well, he's going to stick with it because obviously the markets are going to respond negatively. He backed away very quickly. That negative response was enough to essentially throw him off that
Yeah, I mean, it threw him.
so, and particularly when Scott Besson told me, "Hey, look at the bond market. That's the serious one." He said, "Hey, I don't joke with the bond market. I don't mind the stock the stock market. I don't joke with the bond market." So that's where that's a language that he understands.
Yeah,
you don't get just
but George, it's so
you
much.
play games of the bond market, you could be out of office in no time at all.
Yeah, what was her name in the UK?
Liz Truss.
Liz Truss. Yeah, she learned that really. Yeah, but George, again, we're looking at the bond markets and the stock markets and all that. I mean, in through Asia, there are a number of countries. As we speak right now, we're talking about rationing.
Yep.
Okay, that's
Yep.
a lot bigger than well,
Right.
it's not bigger than the bond market because bond markets can destroy empires. Okay,
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
if you look at the history of finance and war, it's absolutely, and it's not conspiracy theories. I mean, it's real history.
Right.
Okay,
Right. Right.
I mean, the financial sector, you can't understand major conflicts, major modern conflicts without finance. Okay,
Right.
it's an
Yeah.
integral part of it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
um, and we should talk about that a number of times. The two world wars and whatnot. It's
Right.
absolutely
Yeah.
fascinating. It's not conspiracy stuff.
Right.
Okay, it's not. All
Right.
right, but
Right.
Trump has got he's reached a plateau here or an inflection point is that if he's serious and he's just not, throwing us another machination, which I tend to go on that side. Unfortunately, you
Hmm.
get burned so
Yeah.
many times, it's hard to
Hmm.
put any trust.
Hmm.
But I agree with you, George, is that he sees the, he's seen the abyss. He's looking into the abyss right
Yeah.
now.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And he realizes that continuing on this escalation ladder of moving moving up the escalation ladder, it's giving negative returns just for the
Oh,
reason.
I agree. Now, just to reinforce that Israel, this is the last thing in the world Israel wants, because Israel is operating on the Samson option, which is we're going to just bring the whole damn world down with us. I mean, for our own the sake of our own security, we really don't care what happens to everyone else. Let the rest of the world just be damned. Nuclear weapons, whatever, just for our own security. But no.
Yeah, this is a country that has the most moral army in the world. I hear.
But anyway, so in response to first of all to Trump's truth, then first of all we have Barack Ravid, who says Turkey, Egypt, and Pakistan are the countries that conveyed messages between the U.S. and Iran in the last 2 days. We always have to be skeptical of anything that Barack Ravid comes up with. I mean, he's well ensconced in the U.S., well ensconced in Tel Aviv. And it says senior officials from the three countries held separate talks with Witkoff and Foreign Minister Arakci. The mediation continues and is progressing discussions about ending the war and so on. But now here's the Times of Israel. Israel launches fresh strikes in Tehran
There you
as
go.
yep, as Trump announces talks. I think being yes, it looks like they misspelled being Beng held with Iran on ending the war. And then the Israeli Air Force has launched a new wave of strikes in Tehran. The military says the IDF says the airstrikes are targeting Iranian regime infrastructure. Further details on the strike, as well as a wave of overnight strikes, are expected to be provided by the military leader. And then the strikes come shortly after President Trump announced that his administration has
There you
been
go.
in productive talks. Yeah, no, that's it. That's your, as you said, the most the most moral army in the world. And that, no question. I mean, if Trump any whatever moves Trump decides to make to get himself out of this, it will be absolutely ferociously resisted by Israel. And who knows how far Israel is willing to go to prevent him from getting out of it. So,
Yeah, because we have to look at kind of the meta narrative that's going on here. George and I have long talked about when we were obviously during the time of the genocidal war on the Palestinians in Gaza, and then we saw the Hezbollah enter the fray, the Houthis enter the fray, and we had a regional war. As long as the Israelis have the full throated support of the United States, they pursued a policy of solving all problems all at
right,
the same time. And you know what? I mean, the ledger is really mixed, but Hezbollah took a walloping. I
mm,
mean, really a
right,
walloping. The Houthis, they're the ones because of their unique geographical position, their geographical position to one of the important choke points of
mhm,
global trade in the Red
mhm,
Sea, and a country frankly, has learned how to absorb enormous punishment. I mean, that's an amazing story, that country. Okay. And then the I would say that the slow going assault that continues in Gaza. I mean, not, Israel has addressed all of these issues, but it has not gotten solutions, at least final solutions, that it can take to the bank. And this was the big one. This was the big
right,
one. You take out Iran, then Hezbollah, the Houthis, they'll take care of themselves.
right, right.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
yes.
and George, I don't see them giving up on that cause.
No, I
Okay,
don't think I will. No,
they will not get it again in my lifetime.
no,
That's for
that I absolutely agree that's how Israel sees things. The question then is, does the United States sees those things? And I'm not at all sure it does. And certainly Trump has, for him, what's I think is persuasive for him. Hey, I can get an easy win. I can, like Netanyahu, obviously managed to persuade him that this is going to be a piece of cake. Well, look at all the people who've been telling you for years and years, you can't do. Iran is so strong. Iran is so strong. They're not strong. You've slapped them time and time again, and basically they didn't respond. And you can do it again. One big last slap, and you will prevail. And now I think that's why he's suddenly seeing this is a real problem. Remember, he was calling for unconditional surrender.
yeah.
You look at this truth. Hey, so we're looking for a complete and total resolution
What
of hostilities.
in a span of 20 days or so?
Right. Yeah. So it's like he's kind of saying there's not going to be an unconditional surrender. There's not going to be a regime change. You're going to try and figure out a way to get out. He isn't interested in destroying the world. Israel is. He isn't. I mean, he's got children. He's got, they want to make some money.
No, he's got a legacy, George.
He's got a legacy as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because he
absolutely.
doesn't want to be put next to, because I was going to say in the same pedestal, because there is no pedestal for Jimmy Carter. Okay,
Right.
uh,
Right.
he's in that territory right now, and he's desperately fighting for his legacy. And this is not a good year for Donald Trump. Okay, there's so many issues. Everyone. Is the Strait of Hormuz going to be forever gated by Iran right now? Is that going to be part of some kind of agreement? It looks like more and more that if you're at least not a hostile country to Iran, you pay in Chinese currency.
All right. That
Oh,
was all. That was all. That's all.
yeah. So they,
But
so
that,
the,
but there,
no,
Iraq.
I mean, why would they? What I'm saying is that getting into this was, it was almost cartoonish. But now there are facts on the ground, and so it is a grand bargain to say, no, you just have an open Strait of Hormuz. And the Iranians say, nah, I think we'll keep it. We'll keep
Right.
it.
No, I
Okay.
think that's right. But that's why I think with Iran, I mean, they have to be also very careful. They don't want to overplay their hand. I mean, they've done well, but this is not the moment to start exaggerating your strength. After all, the United States is still the United States. It's still much stronger than the U.S. So you need to get now the best deal that's possible. Now, the issue of the Strait of Hormuz is quite interesting because Araghchi did talk about working out some kind of an international control of the Strait of Hormuz. Well, that would be something that Trump would say, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, let's have some United Nations control of the Strait of Hormuz, internationalize it. Something like that could be is doable. Some
What
part of
I
the
could
grand
see is,
bargain. Iran, they're not going to allow Iran just to simply control the Strait of Hormuz. The United States is
well,
going to say,
that remains to be seen. That remains to be
well,
seen.
that's a
No,
difficult.
because a deal that I think internationalizing it, no. UN, no. What about maybe the Persian the monarchs in the Persian Gulf say, hey, let's meet in a place that hasn't been bombed out, and all of us collectively it's in the Persian Gulf. Why don't the Persian Gulf countries decide to fade to the Strait of Hormuz? That's got
Well,
people say,
that could be done, but
have the Americans involved in it?
no, no,
No,
no, right, no. I
no,
think I no, but
no.
right,
Okay,
but that's why. No, I don't see why you can't have some United Nations like solution. I mean, the Strait of Hormuz is an international waterway. You can't have one power basically controlling an international waterway. I mean, even in the case of Turkey and the Dardanelles, I mean, basically, there is freedom of navigation in the Dardanelles. I mean, nobody pays a toll to Turkeys. I mean, if it's a natural isthmus or a natural waterway, then basically no one collects a toll. Unlike, say, the Suez Canal, somebody built it. Each
yeah, and they control both sides.
Exactly. And in the case of Strait of Hormuz, Iran doesn't control both sides. Iran only controls the northern part, and Oman controls the southern part. So basically, you can't just simply declare, well, we're now in control. You have to pay us a
Well, I
toll.
think you
That
can.
isn't going to work. I mean,
I think I
that's not
think you
something you
can.
can make a demand on.
I think you can be against it, but then it depends on how Iran views it. Maybe that will be part of reparations in perpetuity for the war that these countries were on the wrong side of. Okay, start paying reparations.
Well, yeah.
People scoff at the reparations thing. I think they're going to go as far as they possibly can on
Well,
that. Okay,
but
because
reparations.
they're the victim. They are
Right,
the victims
right,
of
okay, but
aggression.
almost anything can count as reparations. I mean,
Sure.
unfreezing of assets could be deemed reparations. Lifting of sanctions could be deemed reparations. You can't you can't just collect a toll on an international waterway. I mean, because if Iran tried to insist on that, that's an argument Iran's going to lose, because hey, international law doesn't allow that. If Turkey doesn't get to do that, then Malaysia and Indonesia don't do that with the Malacca Strait. So I don't think Iran would be in a position to do that.
Well,
Uh, yeah, yeah.
well, George, with all due respect, I mean, it seems like a lot of the rules are changing
Well, a
right
lot of
now.
the
So
rules, but
it's
that's
interesting.
nonetheless that would be a
I agree. I
losing.
see your point.
It's a
Fair,
losing
fair point.
argument. I mean, you don't want to
Fair
even
point.
start
Fair,
embracing a losing argument.
fair.
Um, but anyway, I think one other thing that I wanted to talk about, which is, as you know, that's very pretty. Yeah.
Well, everybody, I'm using my iPad. Okay, so everything is much smaller. And considering my eyesight issues, I got a monocle. So then that's what I do to check the time. So I'm not trying to show off or anything. Okay.
Right. As everybody knows, April the 12th, which means it's now a little more than 2 weeks away. There'll be the big election in Hungary, and of course, the move, big move against Orban in Europe. I mean, we've already talked a lot about how Ukraine is interfering in this election, but now just about every European state is interfering in Hungary because they all want to see the back of Viktor Orban. Well, it's the EU. I'm not saying all every European state, but the EU establishment wants Orban gone. So what they're doing now is the tried and true method, which is to, yes, Russia. It's Russian interference. The Russians are interfering in the Hungarian election in order to secure a victory for Viktor Orban. And of course, his opponent, Peter Magyar, is promising that he will remove all Russian influence from Hungary. He's going to de-Russify Hungary. And
Okay. Okay.
but it is sort of very
So what did you do? Come to power and say they're gone? Okay.
that's right, yeah. But what I think is so um, uh, interesting here is that he is that they what they've done so far is to claim that and we've seen this in election after election after election, which is Russia is interfering in this election. So and it it starts this the Soros outfits kind of start putting out these stories about Russian interference. Then it's of course it's picked up by the mainstream media, and then of course it's picked up within the EU establishment that we are very worried about Russian interference in
So
the
they're manufacturing news. Yes.
Exactly, that's the way it goes. So here was this story that appeared recently, which was this in one of these Soros National Endowment for Democracy sites, V Square, in which here we have Putin's GIU linked election fixers are already in Budapest to help Orban. And here he is. Moscow has dispatched a team to Budapest to interfere in Hungary's April 2026 parliamentary elections. V Square has learned from multiple European national security sources. The operation, overseen by Putin confidant Sergei Kiriyenko, is designed to keep Viktor Orban in power and follows the same blueprint Russia used in Moldova. And then we have the Kremlin has tasked a team of political technologists with interfering in Hungary's parliamentary election. And then it goes on. This again, the same thing, the familiar story, but Moldova. It says the operation has a ground component according to European national security sources. These are always these ubiquitous European national security sources. The plan involves embedding a team of social media manipulation specialists within the Russian embassy in Budapest, provided diplomatic or service passports to shield them from expulsion. Um,
Why do you need to do it in Hungary in an embassy? Why can't you just do it from your country house outside of Moscow?
yeah, I don't get it because I always thought exactly. I thought you could do these things just electronically. I don't quite get it, I even don't understand how you can be shielded from expulsion. Nobody's shielded from expulsion. Whether you're in the Russian embassy or not in the Russian embassy, you can always be expelled. Um, and the approach mirrors tactics used in Moldova, where Russian embassy personnel were found to have coordinated subversive activities on the ground.
I've never heard that before. Have
No,
you?
I've never heard that. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Everyone, George and I are the very few people out there, very few that cover like Moldova
We covered that
and
very
Hungary.
extensively. Yes, yes,
And,
yes.
and then we get a pearl of wisdom. Did you know? Oh, wow, I never heard that
Right,
before.
right.
What?
No, that's right. It is always interesting how they suddenly come up with these intriguing stories. Yes, so it was apparently an operation run out of the Russian embassy. And here we have the sources described the Budapest contingent as a three-person team operating on behalf of the GRU. This task force has arrived in Budapest weeks ago, though it remains unclear whether they have yet begun to influence activities. And it's amazing. How do you know all this? Who provided you with this information of all these people arrived in Budapest and they're
Well, I mean, if you know who
spending
they are, then
in the
you
Russian
why,
embassy?
why didn't you just put them back on a plane and say go home?
um, and so that then this was picked up, of course, by the Financial Times, of course. And here we have Kremlin backs covert campaign to keep Viktor Orban in power. Vladimir Putin endorses a plan drawn up by Russian
How do
consultants.
you know that?
I know that's what I mean. They endorse
How
them.
do you
They,
know that?
you have your man in the Kremlin who just yes he endorsed this plan. Um, And then here's the Kremlin has launched a disinformation campaign aimed at helping Hungarian Prime Minister Orban get reelected next month. And then, Putin's administration has endorsed a plan by the Social Design Agency, a Kremlin linked media consultancy under Western sanctions, to bolster Orban's Fidesz party by flooding social media with messages designed in Russia and posted by influential Hungarians. Um, and then
Who
we,
are these influential
I know
Hungarians?
they know it. That's right. And then they here they have, but they of course report V Square, and then that they're reported by the GRU, and then they refer to Magyar, the leader of the opposition, said Magyar, who had previously avoided antagonizing Russia, called for them to be removed and said Russians go home, echoing the 1956 anti-communist uprising. Um, and then again, the Russians are working for Sergei Kiriyenko, uh, and then we have Politico.
It's very strange because Sergei Kiriyenko, if it's the same one, I mean, he was for a very short time a prime minister right before Putin became prime minister. Kiriyenko was there when there was the financial crash of August 1998.
Mm,
Not a good time to be prime minister. And then he went into Rosatom, the nuclear power sector, and a good administrator at that. I don't. Why would he be involved in elections in a foreign country? I've never. He's
right,
very, very, very much a technocrat. He's
right,
not here. He's not considered a political figure, and I've never heard him involved in politics and in electoral politics.
right,
It-
right, right, right,
so
right.
anyway, that's all.
Yeah, the whole thing does it sounds it's the same playbook. I mean, we go back to 2016 and that's it. Oh, the Russian interference. It's all the time. It's the same thing.
Yeah, but
It's a
George, how much EU interference is there?
well, exactly, and that's the key here. Um, Orban's rival accuses Kremlin of new smear blitz in Hungary election. And then Hungarian opposition leader Peter Magyar is accusing the Kremlin of supporting the election campaign of Viktor Orban with a barrage of disinformation videos that are supposed to appear on Thursday. This is what he does. This Magyar, he is continually saying, "Oh, any minute now, some huge disinformation campaign is about to be launched against me. They're about to launch these videos, disinformation videos against me." And then when it doesn't happen, then I said, "Well, I managed to stop them in their tracks. It's because I went before the media and I said, they're gonna launch this campaign." Well, then they say, "Oh, we better
Well,
not."
George, let me ask you a question. I mean, how much does the so-called Russian interference factor play into Hungarian politics? I
I
mean,
don't
is it
think
a
it does.
real thing?
The issue here is the twofold issue. First of all, that Orban says, I'm not supporting Ukraine, but he says that openly. I mean, I don't know what it's got to do with Russia. I mean, he just said it from the beginning. We're not going to support Ukraine. We don't particularly like Zelensky, and we're just not going to support Ukraine. So he's that's one thing he says, and the second thing he says, which is we're going to keep buying Russian oil and gas because it's cheap and we need it for our economy. I don't get where Russia comes in. I mean, Russia obviously, likes likes this the thrust of his policy, but that's his policy. I mean, that I mean, there's nothing. It's not Russian influence that's getting him to say this. He said, "Well, this is in Hungary's national interest to get cheap energy from Russia." And he says it's just stupid to get involved in this war in Ukraine. And relations, obviously, between Hungary and Ukraine have been deteriorating. And we've talked about this before. So what happens in these cases is the media then spin this and say, "Oh, this is Russian influence." But it's much the same as in 2016 with Trump, when the moment Trump said, "Hey, it would be great if we can get along with Russia," that was immediately interpreted as somehow Russian interference rather than something that Trump himself had come up with. Um, this is just a way of you do the same thing. I mean, you do this in Moldova, you do this in Romania, Hungary, it's all Georgia. It's always the same playbook. Um, but there's a, it was a, so that this is Politico, and um, and then here is the Washington Post story that appeared the other day, which says it's a Washington Post exclusive. To tilt Hungarian election, Russians propose staging assassination attempt
What?
to aid Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, a friend of Russia. In his election, operatives proposed the game changer, quotes, a staged assassination attempt to stir supporters. And it says, in the run up to Hungary's pivotal election in April, a unit of Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service last month began sounding the alarm over plummeting public support for Prime Minister Orban, whose friendly ties to Moscow have long given the Kremlin a strategic foothold inside NATO and the European Union. And then now we have the SVR. So we had the GI. The other one was the GRU. Now the SVR gets involved in this. Officers from the SVR suggested that drastic action might be necessary, a strategy they called the game changer. In an internal report for the SVR obtained and authenticated by a European intelligence service and reviewed by the Washington Post, the operatives proposed a way to fundamentally alter the entire paradigm of the election campaign, the staging of
Wow.
assassination attempt on
So
Viktor
much
Orban.
so much intrigue. Wow.
Yes. And then they said, oh, this is such an incident will shift perception of the campaign out of the rational realm of socioeconomic question into an emotional one where the key themes will become state security and the stability and defense of the political system.
Yeah, but that's the EU's position, right?
That's right. Now, 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 of course,
That's the EU. That's what the EU is doing.
right, but of course, the way they work this is that if the election doesn't work, I mean, if Orban loses, then of course everyone will forget this, or they'll say, "Hey, Russia went out of its way to help Orban, and he was beaten. We beat Putin." Of course, if Orban is re-elected, it's always possible. I mean, I think the polls are exaggerating his weakness. But if he's re-elected, then of course you could
The,
immediately say, "Oh, it
the
was
Russians did it. Yeah.
interference." Yeah, yeah,
If the witch drowns, she wasn't. If the woman drowns, she wasn't a witch. Yeah. Okay.
that's right. So you get everything in place, but also, and this is where it gets important, is which and the EU has done this. They say, hey, there's a major disinformation campaign taking place in Hungary. We need to get our act together. We need to get ourselves involved in the Hungarian election to correct anything that's different, any disinformation, because it's all coming from Moscow. So the EU has already put in place a task force for the Hungarian election to check disinformation.
George, if Urban again very all through Europe recently, conservative parties have been underestimated, and polling of
Right.
conservative party voters has been quite poor. So let me ask you the following question: if Urban squeaks by, will the EU nullify the election?
Um, well, it's going to be hard for them to nullify. I think they're going to be very nasty to him. I think they're going to make all sorts of moves against, try and make moves against him, which aren't easy with the EU mechanism. So they'll try to go for majority voting instead of unanimity. The problem with that method is that to change it from unanimity to majority voting, they're going to have you need unanimity. So you're going to have to, obviously Hungary would vote against it, but there's going to be some other countries that will say, well, I'm not very happy because next time we might be in the minority and we don't want to be dismissed. So before it used to be Poland that was in Hungary's corner. Poland now, with Tusk, it's not favorable to Hungary, but now Slovakia would probably support Hungary and say, no, we still insist on unanimity. So I think they're going to try find all kinds of ways of marginalizing him, but there really isn't a mechanism in Europe to expel any member state. I mean, I think they keep saying we're going to expel Hungary, we're going to expel Hungary, but nobody's quite come up with the mechanism. There's nothing in the EU treaty that that allows a member state to be expelled.
No, I mean, the EU is the Hotel California. You can never check out. Okay. No way.
The one thing, what I'm not sure about is Orban has obviously touted his friendship with Trump. It's always been that his selling point that he's close to Trump. He visited Trump last November, and it was a very warm meeting. And apparently, J.D. Vance is going to drop by in Budapest sometime between now and April the 12th, to give his full-throated endorsement of Orban. What I'm not sure about is that does that help Orban?
I mean, particularly right now. Yeah. What is Hungary is supporting Israel in this war, right?
Well, not really. I mean, it's kept a relatively low profile. I mean, Hungary has just said we are very troubled about the mass migration that will result as a result that'll be the consequence of this war. So we don't want to go back to 2015 and the mass migration from Syria. So he said we don't want this now, the mass migration from Iran. So it hasn't really supported Israel. I haven't seen his, but it's basically just I'm only focused on one thing, which is will there be a mass migration as a result, and we don't want that here in Hungary. So in this case, he really, normally, yeah, you would expect, oh, Israel, but he hasn't really done it this time. Yes, that's right. But anyway, let's go to our locals page. This is the dog's favorite page, because this is where people discuss the dogs and worry about the dogs. This is this is Buddy and Apple. Yeah, we need to be discussed, and we need to be talked about and thought about. And here, these are the Gagglers who are always yeah, exactly. They're thinking about Apple. And here is a question from our good friend Cynthia. Yeah, I know. I mean, I can't help it. Doing my best.
Buddy. Bud. Maybe some ice.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, he's able to jump. He's got a jumping power.
He's an acrobat.
He's an acrobat. Yeah. Wow. Anyway, Cynthia, good friend Cynthia, says an ex post show a selfie of Fredriksson, the leader of Denmark. Ursula van der Pirate.
Oh, I saw the four of them, right?
Yeah, that's right. I haven't seen this. This is interesting. So this
is all over Twitter. It's all over Twitter.
Okay, so this is let's take a look at this picture. So this is Fredriksson, Kaja Kallas, Ursula von der Leyen. Who's the one in the middle? Is this
Wasn't that Fredriksson?
No, Fredriksson's the one on the left. Then we have Kaja Kallas. Then there's a third person, and then there's von der Leyen.
We'll see. It's a generic woman, like they all are.
And anyway, it says the Kaja Kallas. Oh, Evika Silina, I suppose, and Kaja Kallas and Evika Silina.
Okay.
Not sure. It says caption: female power at UCO from Brussels. Female power. God, you should think about
it's so 1980s. I'm sorry, I'm just unimpressed. Okay,
I'm very unimpressed, but also it's hardly a great advertisement for female power, because you think, well, if that's female power, then maybe we should have less of it rather than more of it. Anyway, Evika still in the caption, female power. It touts, quote, style and diversity all in one frame. Well, I
Where
don't.
is the diversity? They're all the same.
You took the word out of my mouth. I was going to say diversity. How do you have diversity? You basically have four women. They kind of they pretty much generic. All four are kind of generic. And then where's the diversity? I mean, so style and diversity all in one frame. Though critics see little actual diversity. Yes, it may be the most ratioed post on X. Oh, 475,000 views, but 100 likes in 24 hours.
Ouch! Ouch! There's a cope.
That's right. With brutal comments mocking the diverse and stylish leaders of the EU.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Whether Brussels notices or cares is a mystery. The numbers, however, are staggering. Yes, that's interesting. But anyway, Cynthia then goes on. For the uninitiated, including myself, in internet slang, a post is ratioed when the critical replies or views far outpace the likes. Yeah, that's my understanding. It's the ultimate digital L, a public signal that a take is so bad, controversial, or out of touch that the internet has collectively decided to laugh at it. In this case, the ratio isn't just a loss, it's an embarrassing public defeat. It's very interesting why people do these kinds of things. They pose for these photographs and then they post them on X, knowing that it will engender a really, really negative, embarrassing response. I don't know why they do it, and
No,
particularly
I think they're completely unaware. Okay, how does that help the average citizen of the EU? I don't see it. And, and aren't we all kind of beyond that? I mean, I'm kind of more interested in merit and results. I don't care if you wear a skirt or not. Doesn't make any difference to me. Okay,
right, yeah, yes. Now,
or a pantsuit in this case
right,
because
yeah. In this case, yes. Um, Now the thing about Kaya Kallas and von der Leyen and Frederiksen is that I mean they're the kind of leaders in the EU, but they're not able to command the fervent hysterical support that, say, Hillary Clinton was able to command. However much one dislikes Hillary Clinton, however awful she was, you always have to acknowledge, but she does command a
yeah,
very substantial contingent of womanhood that swears by her, just
yeah.
absolutely
I mean,
adores
the Hillary cult, yeah, absolutely. And believe me, I've come across her followers, and we came up with the term Karen for a reason. Okay, I mean, these are nasty, nasty people, and you should stay away from them. Keep them very far away from you. Okay,
her. Right.
because many of them have many mental problems, and
Mental problem,
and
yeah.
they want you to play in their psycho fantasy, some kind of actor in their psycho fantasy.
Right.
I don't want to do that. Do that
Right.
by yourself. Do it among
That's,
yourselves.
that's
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Like
That's
in the
that,
picture. Okay, like in the
that's right.
picture.
That's right. And so with her, like her husband, I mean, she really owes everything to her husband. But her husband has kind of faded away. I mean, he's a former president, but no one really pays any attention to her husband. But she herself, however, is obsessively covered. Every single one of her pronouncements, everything is tried, banal, boring, poll tested. She never says anything of the slight interest or of originality, but nonetheless, she gets a lot of coverage. Her husband is, I don't even know what her husband does. I mean, you just see this old man kind of shuffling
Well, I
around.
think he spends most of his time away from his wife.
Who can blame him? But his
And you know
pronouncement,
what? That's one of the interesting ironies of history. I mean, Bill Clinton is not a person I have any respect for
no,
whatsoever.
no,
Okay, I think he had a very mediocre presidency.
Yeah.
I've never cared about the Monica Lewinsky thing. I was against the impeachment of him on that. Okay, but he's a person of minor significance. But because he's married to Hillary Clinton,
Right.
he does get sympathy. Okay, he's like at least I'm not married to her. Okay.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I kind of remember that whenever she somehow recorded some messages, and they're together, they're sitting in a room together, and she kind of looks, when she's not coiffed, I mean, she just looks completely unhinged, and
And
she's
manic
ranting
and
and
manic.
raving about
I
Trump.
know the clip you're thinking about.
Yeah, and he's just
She's sitting
sitting
on
there.
the couch and he's kind of behind her over her shoulder, and then she starts talking about Russiagate, Russiagate, and then whoever put the clip on YouTube had the song "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend." It's you again, and you can see Bill's like, here she goes again. She's
That's
just
right. Just
manic.
she, yeah, just manic, because she obviously didn't have time or couldn't be bothered just to make herself look presentable, and just you felt sorry for him because you felt, God, he has to put up with this all the time. I mean, imagine how many hours of ranting and raving and angry outbursts he has had to listen to throughout his life,
And
all
then
the
you understand how
bitterness.
Monica Lewinsky got into his life.
That's right. Anyway, is Cynthia then goes on, not that Trump needs an ego boost, but thanks to CNN, he can now boast of 100% approval from his MAGA base, zero
Oh.
point higher than Kim Jong Un, who supposedly won his recent election with 99.3%. By my Annalena Baerbock 360-degree math, Trump support even edges out Kim's. Trump clearly believes it. He was openly bragging and gloating to the media about the 100% figure. That's dangerous if he truly believes MAGA fully supports the war. I have to say, I was kind of puzzled about that poll. I don't fully understand it because I don't think it even makes any sense that 100%. We obviously it's not 100%. We know that the MAGA doesn't support him. I mean, if it's 100%, how do you account for Tucker Carlson or Marjorie Taylor Greene, and the rest? So I don't get how that poll was worked out, the 100%. Um,
It's not worth paying attention
right,
to.
that's
Really.
right.
I don't
Anyway,
know if CNN did that just to mock, was just mocking. I don't know.
yeah, because all the other polls had shown that he was losing about, say, 10%. That's significant. 10%. If 10% don't show up to vote, you've been beaten in a landslide. Anyway, Cynthia then goes on and says, George, what's even worse about the Washington Post claiming that Russia plans to help Viktor Orban win re-election by staging a fake assassination attempt is that the paper is asking readers to accept what sounds like a bad spy thriller. Ironically, agencies like the CIA have a long record of coups and assassinations abroad, making the claim feel more like a projection than a revelation. That's right. And
Good.
what's amazing about these stories is they talk about a Western intelligence service. They don't know what Western intelligence, which Western intelligence service is providing you with this information.
Well, and Western intelligence services that's one of their expertise is
Right,
assassination. Okay.
assassinations, yeah, and but then at the next level is putting out a lot of fake stories, fake news about Russia. I mean, they've been doing this now for more than 10 years. You keep whenever you've got an awkward election on your hands, an election that you might lose. You bring out, well, Russia. That's the Russian interference. Um, and anyway, anything else? So anyway, thank you so much, Cynthia. Good point. And here we have then we have Dr. Nostrum says the EU autocrats rather obviously want to depose any European politician with an ounce of independence or patriotism. I think that's right. I think that's
No lies detected.
that's exactly correct. Anyway, so as we wind up, I think it's going to be another one of these strange weeks. We
Yep.
discussed at length this truth that Trump sent out earlier today. Trying to make sense of it. We might have by later today. We might have a completely different truth
Yeah,
to
what I
discuss.
usually do for my program, the in the evening before I prepare, I write it all out myself. Nobody does the writing. I do all my own writing, all the comments, everything you see on the screen is what I do, and I have to take the night off and watch Twitter. Okay, and it's something I don't like doing, and I'll have to prepare an hour before the program, which I don't like to do. George knows me pretty well. I don't like to be rushed. I like everything planned, everything, be on time. That's how I operate. And I don't like this environment because I have no idea what I'm going to do tomorrow. And I don't like that. That's not the way I roll.
Yes. No, 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 no question. I mean, but that's because Trump doesn't operate like that. I mean,
That's
he's
right. He doesn't roll that way.
no, that's right. It's yeah, last minute you just send something like this out, and then you left scratching your head trying to understand what he's saying. I mean, it's always just you know it's difficult to interpret it because you don't even fully understand what exactly he's just said. So, um, but that's where we are today. Tomorrow, who knows? Anyway, thank you so much, everybody who joined us. Thank you for all of your questions and comments, and thank you for all the contributions to the tip jar. As we can see, the dogs are not in a good mood. So it's good that something was done to alleviate their somewhat aggravated
Yeah,
frame of mind.
Apple has got a wall. I don't know why. But
Not a good sign. Yeah. Anyway, we'll be back next Monday at the same time, 10 a.m. Eastern time, and then please join me tomorrow for my solo, and whatever time that's going to be. So we'll see you then. Until then, all the best. Bye bye.